Good evening, everybody. Hi, folks out there. Welcome to the first online tasting through the bottle store. This is something that we've actually been projecting actually before the unfortunate sort of issues that have been going on in the Middle East. So this is a series of wine tasting, virtual wine tastings that we're going to carry out over the next months. Despite the Middle East conflict. So I'm Mike Bailey, the wine category manager for the bottle store. Welcome everybody to this virtual wine tasting. You can see that I have the wonderful Mr. Jorge Otto, wine owner and sales director for their family business in Spain, from the beautiful area of Aragon. And Jorge will introduce these wonderful very, very friendly, approachable, easy drinking style of wines to you over the next hour. So without further ado, Jorge, take over, take the show on.
Hello, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. And yeah, thanks for joining this virtual wine tasting. That is actually the first one I do ever. So it's a pleasure. So my name is Jorge Otto. I'm part of the family that runs the Bodega Otto Bestué. So let me tell you a little bit about the story, just very briefly, but important. I would love to make it as easygoing as possible. And if you have any questions, then drop the message and we will answer as quick and as well as I can. Okay. So we are a family winery. What that means is that everything we produce, everything we do in the winery is controlled by someone from my family. My father and my brother, they're in charge of the production and the vineyards, and I am the one traveling and doing the commercial part, nationally and internationally. Our story, actually, our family has been producing grapes in the same region and the same plots that we are cultivating them now since the year 1640. We have papers dating back to 1640. And since then, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, we have been producing grapes. And it was in the year 1999 when my father and when my grandfather and my father together, they set up the winery as it is now. We are in Spain, northeast, so we are very close to the French border, and we are 2 hours away from Barcelona. The region is called Aragon, and we are at the upper part of Aragon. That is called Somontano. Somontano actually means at the foot of the mountains. So we are at the foot of the Pyrenees, and we are this pre-Pyrenees type of region that it's very important for the type of wines that we produce. We get a lot of different temperature between the day and the night. During the day, we get a lot of heat and a lot of like Mediterranean weather. But during the night, all the cool freezings from the Pyrenees, they freeze, they cool the vines, and that allows us to keep a lot of freshness and aromatic profile in our wines. Okay, so important parts of the winery. We produce around 400,000 bottles. That is still a small quantity that allow us to be hands-on on all the parts of the process, all the part of the process of producing wine. But at the same time, it's a size that allow us to play a little bit, allow us to travel, allow us to open up new markets, like for example, Abu Dhabi. And thanks for the bottle store. I mean, it has been a long trip. But without this size that you can play a little bit, it will be impossible for my wines to travel all the way to the Middle East and be in Abu Dhabi. Okay, it's very important also to mention that we are the ones that produce our grapes. We have 60 hectares, and all the wines we produce, they are coming from these 60 hectares. And this is very important. This is a differentiate factor, because if the producer of the grapes is economically, he has the same incentive of producing the wine, then is when you are all within the same vibe, and is when you can produce the best quality wines that you can from the grapes. Because remember that there are a lot of people in the wine industry that produce grapes that they are only looking to get kilos times money at the end of the year. So being the ones that produce the grapes and also producing the wines from these grapes make us maximize not the price of, not the kilos, but the quality of the wines. And this is very important. Okay.
So you're making high quality, easily accessible, great drinking styles of wine. Is that what you're trying to say?
This is what we try, exactly. And this is actually, like, we are coming from a region that is not the most famous region in Spain. And this is actually what it's our biggest and most important selling point. I think we have a value add price that is superb, it's very high. And this is we manage that because we control all the steps in the process. And that's very important.
Well, hopefully this will be reflected in the tasting of the wines as well. Boy.
It should be, otherwise, but business. No, but it's very important because during the production of the grapes and the production of the wine, there is a lot of moments that if someone that you really, someone that really takes care of the process does the work, it has nothing to do if someone that doesn't really care does the process. There is a lot of different steps where you can make a mistake or you can make something interesting. Okay.
So in terms of your climate for the region, are you cool, moderate, or warm climate overall?
So I would tell you it's a Mediterranean climate. It's a warm climate that allows us to produce like very intense and high tannin reds as well, like Cabernet Sauvignon, for example, type of reds. The problem is, one of the key factors or one of the key advantages of where we are is that we are very close to the mountains. So we are at the foot of the Pyrenees. So that allows, like during the night, the temperature goes down massively. So for example, in August, in July, we can have like 40 degrees during the day and actually 15 degrees during the night. So that give us a lot of balance in the wines, and that allow us to keep the freshness and the fruit in the whites, and also in some of the reds like the Garnacha that we will taste later.
Great. Okay.
All right. So if you don't have any question, we can go through the wines. We're going to taste two different. Well, one important thing that I missed. Somontano is it's quite of a new denomination of origin, and given that we are very close to France, we have a lot of French influence. So that translates into the varieties that we work. We work very strongly the Garnacha, that is the main Spanish red grape with Tempranillo. So if you go to Aragon, you're going to get Garnacha everywhere. So within Aragon, we are not the highest part. We work a lot Garnacha, but we also work a lot of international varieties like Cabernet Sauvignon, like Shiraz, for example. And then on the white side, we also have some Garnacha Blanca, but we also work some international varieties like Chardonnay, like Riesling, some Gewürztraminer, for example. So that's one of the differences of our region in Spain. Okay, so if you're ready, let's go through the tasting. We are going to taste three whites, but we are going to start with the two Chardonnays. Okay, we will start with this wine, that is the Chardonnay, Bestué Chardonnay. So Chardonnay for us is very important. We used to be a red-driven or red-producing region, and actually now we are producing more whites than red. It's the market that is moving that way, but it's also like the region and the varieties and the white, how the wines perform. The Chardonnay, it's one of the most white varieties, like the most planted white varieties in the world. And it's very interesting and it's very fun because it's very versatile. You can produce very easy and fresh and fruity, easy to drink wines, but at the same time, some of the most expensive white wines in the world are produced by Chardonnay. So it's a very versatile variety that the winemaker enjoys a lot because you can express a lot of different styles. Okay, we have three different Chardonnays. The bottle store works them all, but this is, and we are going to taste today two of them. This is our entry-level Chardonnay, the one that we want to express the fruit of the Chardonnay, the freshness of the Chardonnay. Okay. Important because I travel a lot, and when I travel, I see very horrible things when people open the bottles. Never do this. Never take the capsule. I mean, it costs a lot of money and it looks beautiful. So please just cut it under the lip of the bottle. Okay. So we go like this. So on the Chardonnay, three different Chardonnays. I said this is So the idea of having three different Chardonnays is to express different wine techniques. Okay, so this wine, the idea of this wine is to express the freshness of the Chardonnay and the fruit of the Chardonnay. Chardonnay performs different in different regions. So you have Chardonnays in Burgundy, the most famous part. You also have in California. You have in Australia. You have in South Africa, and you have in Spain. Within Spain, Somontano has won like the most. We are the most planted region of Chardonnay, and also is the most well regarded in terms of Chardonnay. Okay, we're going to pour in the glass, and the first thing that you will notice
very well poured there, Jorge.
Yeah.
I said very well poured, very professional pour,
sorry.
no dripping, very slick with your movement there.
Thank you for that. So when the first thing, like when you smell the Chardonnay, you're gonna get it straight. So in Somontano, in north of Spain, we get a lot of tropical fruits. If this was a French Chardonnay, you will get more citric, more lemon. But however, if you drink this Chardonnay, you're going to find a lot of pineapple, a lot of banana, a lot of melon, a lot of like peach as well. So,
now, is that down to the soil of the region and the climate, or is it is it both? Soil and climate?
I don't know the reason. I mean, I don't know the answer, but I will suspect it's both. I suspect is the soil. I mean, it's important. The soil is we haven't talked about, but the soil. We are at the foot of the mountain, as we said, but we are also on a valley, and here there is a river. The river is called the River Cinca. So we get a lot of gravelly soil, And we have, so it rains a lot. So this is a very important part of our region. We have a lot of water reservoirs. So we have plenty of water, but we can put the water as much as we need, because when it rains, the water just goes down, goes to the river, because the soil is very gravy. But then if we have the need of adding some water, we have dripping. So we can irrigate the wine. And so I guess it's the climate. You get a lot of these flavors, and also the soil, of course. Yeah. So when you on the nose, this is a very fruity and a very fresh Chardonnay. So it's a Chardonnay that pairs well with almost everything. You can get some, like as a wine by the glass in a restaurant. It's super easy. You can get with some fish, obviously, with some like smooth, let's say, salads as well.
So this has this does not see any oak barrel in terms of aging or anything. Its whole life cycle from vineyard to bottle is in a stainless steel tank, correct?
Correct. It's stainless steel. It's around like 3 to 4 months. And the idea of this is, for example, for this wine, is very important to harvest is as lowest temperature as possible. That's why we harvest it during the night. So we harvest during the night. Then as soon as the grapes arrive in the winery, we cool them down massively. We do like a cold maceration, let's say at around like 8 degrees for, let's say, 1, 2, 3 days. And with that, you try to capture as much fruitiness as possible. And then after that, it's you try to always try to fermentate it also as cold as possible, so you don't get any bitter aromas, and you get all any bitter flavors. Sorry, you get all aromas and freshness.
Okay.
Right.
So this is your soldier. This is your soldier like Chardonnay. This is your wine by the glass. This is your easygoing, fruit-driven, uncomplicated wine, but great tasting wine for pretty much most occasions. Great balcony drink, terrace drink, but then can also pair nicely with those more lighter, delicate foods, as you would, salads, etc. Right?
Yeah, correct.
It's got a depth of flavor to the wine. So
yes, actually, I mean, this is the wine, the most famous wine from the winery, the one we produce the most bottles, and this is the one that it's our, as you said, our soldier. Yeah, it's a good expression. Yeah. It's very smooth. It's still very elegant, but it's easy to drink, right?
And of course, there'll be the nice acidity from that coolness that you get around the area, because that, a cool climate or the coolness elevates the acidity in the wine naturally, right? So
exactly. Yeah, it's very, for the whites, it's key to maintain the acidity. Otherwise, a white wine with low acidity, it's very,
bland.
Exactly, it's very flat, and also after like X amount of months, the wine just collapses. So it's very important to have high acidity. And then it's also important to mention, this is not going to affect the quality, but my grandparents are in the label. Okay, Lorenzo and Alicia.
Great, Jorge. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for the description on the first wine and showing us the wonderful label, etc. So I think I can see that we have the second one, which is slightly different in style. So if you'd like to go through, unless there's any questions from anybody that's tasting, if there are any questions, we can answer that. Otherwise, we'll move on to the second wine, which Jorge will now go through. Has a slight, it's still a Chardonnay, but it has some subtle differences to the style.
Correct, exactly. So as we said before, Chardonnay works in different styles, and the winemaker can elaborate in playing around a lot, and that actually winemakers love that. My brother loves that. So this is our Chardonnay that is called Alicia. Okay, Alicia is our grandmother, as I said before, and this is a Chardonnay that after like the cool harvest, after like having some cool maceration, this wine stays around between 3-4 months with its lees. The lees is it's a word that we always talk about lees when we talk about Chardonnay and white wine, but it's important to clarify what it is. So the lees is the yeast, the death yeast of the fermentation. So the fermentation, you get the yeast that they eat the sugar in the juice and then convert it into alcohol. Okay, so when there is no more food, let's say, to eat, and then the yeast dies, and then it goes down in the tank. Okay, if the tank were transparent, you could see at the lowest part the yeast. You will see different colors or different type of lees. The yeast that now we are going to call them lees. Okay, so the ones that are the fine lees, those are the ones that they taste buttery. They taste like bread, like let's say like a pastry. Okay, so if you leave the wine with those yeast, with those lees for let's say 4, 5 months, 6 months, it depends on the winemaker, and then you move the wine inside the tank, you're gonna get this mouth feeling of the yeast, of these buttery aromas, and the wine is gonna be less vertical and more rounded and more smooth. Okay, so let's put it.
So again, stylistically wise, we move away from the fresh and fruity style to something that's now getting a bit more textural attachment to the wine, a little bit more body, so texturally more, and then as you mentioned, these buttery pastry characters coming into the wine, yeah, from that lees exposure.
Exactly. You're going to get these bakery notes. And the wine, we always like to say that this is a more gastronomic wine. It's a wine, let's say, more adequate to pair with food or to drink it with food in a wine list, in a menu. But yeah, it's, I mean, it's like the list, the work on list is something very typical in France. And it gives you a more reductive also aromas, flavors, and yeah, it makes a more special Chardonnay, I would say.
And a little unknown fact, Jorge, just between yourself and I, and obviously the audience out there, is my favorite white wine, as I've got older into my 50s, is a lovely buttery Chardonnay. I do like the Chardonnays from Napa, for example.
Okay.
So, and indeed yours tonight is a style that I very much I'm into at the moment. I like that buttery Chardonnay style. But it needs to be balanced. It needs to have the that balance with the acidity, the flavor, the vanilla, the pastry, that sort of butteriness. It all needs to be beautifully blended into the wine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm tasting it now. I think it's a beautiful wine. I like it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions from in terms of can't see people obviously tasting, but hopefully you're tasting the wines as Jorge is going through the explanation. Hope you're enjoying the wines. We do have a third one, which Jorge will now. If I'm not wrong, it's the slightly off-dry style that we've got, right? Coming up.
Well,
yes.
Actually, no? I think actually we'll go for the red wine now, and then we will finish with the semi-sweet. Okay. Otherwise, the sweetness.
That's right. You always, when you were in Abu Dhabi doing the tastings with the hoteliers, I do remember that you always left the sweet wine to the end. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise, yeah, the sugar of the semi-sweet, it just destroy your palate, and then everything everything is horrible after that. All right, so we're gonna go with Garnacha. Okay, Garnacha. We go to Spain. You're gonna one of the main or the most planted red wines is obviously Tempranillo and Garnacha. Okay, within Garnacha, Aragon is the main region for Garnacha, and within Aragon, given we are at the highest part, we work Garnachas in different styles as well as Chardonnay.
Now that's interesting. Actually, I wasn't fully aware that was the case. So Aragon is that important in terms of Garnacha production.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
I would have naturally resonated towards Rioja or La Mancha or these places. So is it quality Grenache or Grenache in general?
It is Garnacha in general. If you look at Aragon, you have the middle part that is Cariñena, Campo de Borja, Calatayud. Those have hundreds of hectares of Garnacha. And then obviously it's Somontano, that is the highest part of Aragon. And then also the south of France, we also have a lot of Grenache. So
Okay.
some French people say that Garnacha is from France, but honestly, I believe it's from Spain. But anyway,
Of course you're going to say that. Of course you're going to say that. So is it Grenache in all forms? So you'd get high volume bulk Grenache up to top expressions of Grenache.
Exactly. So Garnacha, up until the last 5 years, it was not a very well regarded grape because usually it was associated, or let's say, with bulk wine. However, because it's a grape that the skin of the grape is very thin, so it gives you low tannin wines and very like fruity and fresh wines. In the past, that was not the style of what people like to drink in terms of red wine. However, now the young consumer is moving more towards the easy to drink, fresh type of red wine, and Garnacha for that is actually perfect. Because on this wine, for example, that is our like soldier in terms of, as you said before, in terms of the reds, you're going to get a Garnacha that is low tannin, is very easy to drink, is fresh, is very aromatic as well, is very fruity. And people that don't like to drink red wine, they are going to love drinking this. And for us, because we are not very comfortable with just plain Garnacha, we put this wine between 1 and 2 months in used oak, but just to give a bit of tannin, a bit of complexity to the wine. Okay?
So if I put it into context, other similar styles would be like a Beaujolais, maybe a Pinot Noir, in this sort of light, fruitier,
exactly. Yeah.
low tannin category.
Exactly.
Would you say your Grenache has a little bit more lifted tannins in it and a little bit more, I suppose, depth of, weight in the wine and depth of flavor versus
Correct.
a Beaujolais, for example?
Exactly. Yeah? When I go abroad and I go to countries and sell wine, obviously everyone knows Pinot Noir. Everyone is like Pinot Noir, Pinot Noir. So this is an alternative to Pinot Noir, but as you said, it's a bit more tannin. It's not as light as Pinot Noir, so it's a bit more intense. But I believe people are going to find it very easy to drink. So it could be an alternative to Pinot Noir, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can see in the glass that it is a little bit darker in its color profile as well,
correct.
Right?
It is darker, exactly, yeah. It has this like level up in terms of intensity from the Pinot Noir, correct. So if you smell this Garnacha or you taste it, it is a very red fruit aromas like strawberry, raspberry, cherries, but it's still very juicy and very like smooth characters, let's say. So people that don't usually drink wine, they're gonna drink this wine and gonna say, "Hey, I thought I didn't like red wine." I mean, and this is a good entry level wine for entry consumers. Right.
I think you're doing it a disjustice. I think it's that notch above entry level. I categorize entry level, sort of mid-level, mid-premium, and then premium. So this for me is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I always made this mistake, and my brother keeps on telling me this all the time. Don't call your wines, your entry level wines, entry level, because people think of entry level as cheap, and it's not. So entry level for us is our first wine, let's say. But actually, as I said before, we produce the grapes and then we produce the wine. We are not going to bottle under Bestué something that is shit. Okay, you see what I mean? Honestly, I mean, it's like this. So yeah, I mean, this wine is very, very fresh. It's still very aromatic. I mean, Garnacha, yeah, and it's actually very nice.
And classically, how would you drink it in your region? How would you drink Grenache in your region, and what would you have with it, food-wise?
Well, I mean, this type of red wine in Spain, people drink it by the glass. Very easy. No need for food. But you can put grilled meat. You can put, obviously, tapas, even pizza. It's an easy wine.
So what's the best pairing for Grenache, really? What's the most ideal pairing?
For me, I would say grilled meats, pizza even, some tapas, why not?
Okay.
And actually someone
tapas.
asked that question, so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, Tempranillo and this, the smooth Tempranillo without oak is a similar wine as well. Those are very similar wines, similar grapes.
So in your region, you eat more, you have more red meats, or do you have the combination of the coastal, do you get a lot of seafood in your region as well? Or no?
Because we are like 2 hours and a half away from the coast. So mainly our region is meat. So lamb is very important here. We produce a lot of lamb. Actually, I'm sure a lot of lamb is trying to go into the UAE and it has no option now. And pork. Yeah, we are a big producer of pork as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Great.
So let's move into the last red wine.
And we do have lots of stock on the Grenache at the moment with our projects in the on-trade. It's been well received by a few on-trade accounts. So with the current issues, obviously the restaurants are feeling the pinch. So we have a lot of your fabulous Grenache available for our retail customers.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. All right. So this is with this wine we go back to, let's say, 20 years. Okay. So this wine we have produced it since the year 1999, exactly the same way that we are producing it now. So it's called Bestué Santa Sabina. And Santa Sabina is the name of the plot, and it's 100% Cabernet Sauvignon. Again, we go back to this idea that Somontano has a lot of French influence in terms of winemaking techniques and varieties, and this is Cabernet Sauvignon 100%. Okay, so Cabernet Sauvignon, I like to say that is kind of the opposite as Garnacha. So Garnacha was a thin skin grape. This is a thick skin grape. And it gives you a lot of flavor and a lot of tannin wines. So
this is a big boy.
Exactly. Yeah. So
monster truck. It's like a monster truck.
Correct. Yeah. Some of the big reds in the world they are produced with Cabernet Sauvignon. So Cabernet Sauvignon is a grape that you either do it very well, or you make a huge mistake and it's an undrinkable wine because or it's too early, or it's too green, or it's not ripened enough, etc., etc., etc. It's a grape that needs a lot of time. You need to harvest it at the right time. If you harvest a little bit early, then it's unripened and it's undrinkable. If you harvest too late, then it has a huge alcohol content, and it's just way too much. So actually, this is the wine that I like the most from the winery. Our biggest market of this wine is Central Europe, like Switzerland, Austria, even like Luxembourg, Belgium. And it's because it's similar with like commas with this French Bordeaux, okay, the Bordeaux type of French wine. So let's pour it. And actually, these wines, we have a good thing, but that can become a bad thing. And it's that in terms of sales, Bestué, we are good in terms of sales. I mean, we sell the wine quite well. And sometimes we can make the mistake of releasing the wine too early, because this wine needs time in the barrique, it needs time in the bottle, and then when everything combines perfectly, then you get a great Cabernet Sauvignon. And actually, these are the wines that when I travel and I go to see our importer in the UK, or I go and see the bottle store in Abu Dhabi, every time that I taste this wine outside the winery, it tastes better than in the winery. And it's because it has spent some time in the bottle. So this wine can stay for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years in the bottle, and it's going to become better. And actually, I'm sure like the one you are going to taste is going to be better than the one that I'm tasting now. That's important. This wine goes through barrique, new French oak, and it stays between 14, 16 months. We don't put it on the label because every year we do what we want, because every year is different. Yes, to put 15 months is stupid, because maybe that year is better to have 14 or it's better to have 16, because this is a game of trying to make the grape round, to make the wine rounded, to make perfect on the palate, to make it a high tannin wine, high structure, high volume wine, but it's still smooth. You're gonna drink it, you're gonna feel the tannin, you're gonna feel the aftertaste, you're gonna feel all the expression of the wine, but when you drink it, it has to be smooth. Actually, I was in Madrid 2 weeks ago, and we went to see a new Chinese restaurant. So the owner was a girl, and she had never. She told me, "I don't like wine." So I said, "Okay, we have a difficult one to sell too." And then she said, "I don't like strong wines. I don't like, because normally like the non-wine drinker is gonna like more the garnacha, and is gonna like less this type of wine." So we start tasting the garnacha. Everything was great, blah, blah. And then I told the lady, "Hey, let's taste this so you get an idea what is a high tannin red wine." So I poured the wine. Then the girl started drinking the wine, and she said, "Oh wow, this is super smooth. This is smoother than the garnacha." And I was like, "Wow! I mean, that means the wine is good." If someone that doesn't really drink wine very often likes this wine and feels it's smooth, it's because it's a well done Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay.
And so, in terms of barrel or the aging between the Grenache and the Cabernet, I would imagine that the Cabernet has a more significant time in the barrel in terms of aging. Yeah. Is there any barrel influence on the fermentation? And what's the comparison with Grenache versus the Cabernet? Just to give
yeah. Correct. Yeah. So Garnacha only goes through the barrel for, like, let's say 1-2 months, and it's used oak. So, for example, the barrel that we use this wine, later on we're going to use it for the Garnacha. However, here it always gets new French oak, and also within the barrels there is a huge world around, and you have different origins. You have French, German, American. You have Hungarian oak as well. You have different toast, like medium, medium plus, low, high toast. So this wine is 15-16 months in new oak, and it takes the French oaks. However, the Garnacha, it takes some of these oaks, and it also takes some American oak as well. Okay.
I always love to just highlight the significance of the new oak as a producer. Because the cost of a barrel, of a new oak barrel that a winery needs to buy in is somewhere, correct me if I'm wrong, but somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 euros per barrel. I'm not sure exactly the price.
The important part is that the difference between the cheapest barrel and the most expensive barrel, as you said, is huge. You can buy some American oak for 400 euros, let's say, the barrel. But then you also can buy some French oak new for 1,000 euros, correct? So the cost for the wine, the I don't know how to say escandallo in English, but the amount of the price of that barrel that you put inside this bottle, the difference can be massive. It's like our Chardonnay fermented on oak. We are using a very expensive French oak because we believe that it gives the right texture and the right flavor and everything. But yeah, the difference in price is massive.
Sure. And which one do you prefer from the two reds that you've just explained? Oh.
I prefer this one. I mean, this. If you're a red drinker, you're gonna find much more complexity and you're gonna realize that to produce this wine is much more difficult than produce the Garnacha. So,
but you know, Jorge, I'm gonna flip it a little bit here because wine has its moments, right?
No, that's
so, you know, and we're all different as people. We all taste differently, and we We all, when we go out and we go to like a restaurant, etc., we can be in a very different frame of mind. So from Tuesday to Thursday, as it were. So I think both have, wines have their purpose. And so, the Grenache being a light, fruit-forward style of wine may be something that you want to have on an afternoon on the weekend on a terrace somewhere. Having a light, informal tapas style or pizza at pizza slice at Antonio Pizza, even though it's Italian, for example.
Yeah, no.
But the Cabernet Sauvignon is more, because of its structure and its style, would be more of a serious restaurant a wine. It just depends on your mood and where you are and how you're feeling, I suppose.
That's correct. Yeah, within which I do prefer, it's this wine. But what you said is exactly correct. If you're in an afterward with your friends, you are having some drinks, the Garnacha is going to be beautiful. If you drink this, maybe it's too much. Let's say too much instead of flavor, instead of tannin, instead of aftertaste. So,
Grenache, perfect barbecue wine with friends.
Correct.
Yeah, and to be proud of showing it to your friends. And the Cabernet Sauvignon too would be, if you wanted to bring it out with a great steak that's been put on the barbecue and have something bigger and better, the Cabernet would be perfect. But I think it's much more suitable to, let's say, a Butcher and Stills steakhouse restaurant that we have in Abu Dhabi. Okay, Jorge, what about the last wine? If we can go to the dessert, not the dessert, the sweet one, because this is a really interesting wine that we brought in, I think this serves all palates really.
Correct.
In the market, because it's not overtly sweet. It's not a Sauterne or a Tokai. It's a perfectly easy drinking style of slightly sweeter wine, right?
Exactly. So I love this wine because it's a combination of wine technique that is not easy, that I'm going to explain to you now. And also it goes perfectly with the trend in the market. I mean, what are people drinking? What is the consumer moving into or towards? So the wine market, the wine consumption in general, worldwide, is going down. Going down because, let's say, old people retire and new consumers come in and they have different palates, different way of drinking, different ideas. They all go to Pilates at 8 a.m. in the morning. So this wine is this wine is the second vintage that we have produced this wine, and we decided to produce this as the answer to the market. I mean, we were we were seeing young people drinking wine, from people asking for less alcohol wines, people drink, and then we saw some wines like this that they were doing very well, and then we decided, okay, let's copy that and let's produce a semi-sweet wine from Somontano. So this is called El Mielero. Okay, El Mielero in Spain means the person who produces honey. Okay, and you can see on the label you have the bee, and you have here also on the capsule. So when we go into the semi-sweet category, this is a huge issue, a huge problem, because you have the whole range. You have from very, very, very cheap wines to mid-price like this, and then to very expensive wines and different styles in France and everywhere, and dessert wines. So this is not that sweet. So here the important thing is to differentiate between the very, very cheap wines and this wine. Why is that? When you produce a semi-sweet wine, you have two options. One is you get a cheap white dry wine. Dry wine means that you ferment it until the end, so there is no residual sugar on that wine. You can buy it bulk, you can do whatever, and then you can get it super cheap, because you're not really looking into the taste of that dry wine. Okay, and then you just buy concentrated must, you put it there, and then you get a semi-sweet, because you have a white wine with, let's say, 12, 13 alcohol degrees, and then you also have some sugar in the wine. That is a cheap wine, because it's the cheapest way to produce this wine, and it's not balanced at all, because you have everything that the dry wine has, plus the sugar of the concentrated mass that you added to the wine. Okay, so that is, in my opinion, is easy. Is wrong. Okay, so if you're gonna do this, this is the expensive type, the mid-price type of semi-sweet. Why is that? What we do is when the wine starts fermenting, it goes from full sugar to none. Okay, to nothing. So in the middle, when you reach the amount of residual sugar that you want the wine to have, you stop fermentation. When you stop fermentation, you need to cool down the wine down from, let's say, 20 degrees to, let's say, 5 or 6, so the yeast dies, because the yeast only activates itself from 14, 15 degrees. Okay, so then the yeast stops converting sugar into alcohol. Then you have some residual sugar, but then you need to make sure that there is not some residual yeast on the wine, because if we bottle the wine and there is some residual yeast on the wine, with the oxygen that comes through the cork and with the sugar of the wine, it's gonna re-fermentate and it's gonna take all the cork out, and it will be a disaster. Okay, you will call me, Jorge, I have all your mielero with the cork out, and it will be a completely mess. So for that not to happen, you need to buy a very expensive filter that we bought it one last year, and it costs around 100,000 euros. So you filter it super smoothly. You need to be very slow in the process because you are risking a lot. And then, because you need to make sure that there is non-residual yeast in the wine. You need to be very clean in the winery. You need to clean all the bottle machine. You need to clean all the bombs, everything, because if there is a contamination, then you can get all you can get a second fermentation in the bottle, and then it's game over. Okay, so what that allows us? So that allows us to have a white wine that it has all the expression of the variety, and it has low alcohol. It has 10 alcohol degrees, and it has a 39 residual sugar, grams per liter of residual sugar. So when you drink this wine and you compare it with these like very cheap semi-sweet wines, you are gonna get the different stripe. You put it in a glass, you put the other one, on one wine you're gonna get sugar and dense wine, and you will not want to repeat the second glass. However, on this wine, you're going to get one glass and then another, and you're going to finish the bottle, and you're going to be super satisfied. Okay. So, and then in terms of varieties, this is a blend of Garnacha and Riesling. It has the last vintage we put some Gewürztraminer. Now we are moving more to Garnacha and Riesling. And in the future, we plan to add a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc to give it a bit more aroma. I mean, like everything in a winery, this is a wine that we are learning, that we are like improving every year. And actually, I can say that I'm super happy with this vintage and the new wine. I mean, every year we make it better.
So does that mean when you're playing with the different varietals, and are you still achieving a very similar style at the end game, or is it changing subtly in terms of its taste profile?
It changes, and it's actually a wine that is not well rated. I mean, people don't realize how difficult it is to produce this, because we elaborate the two varieties in separate. So on one side Garnacha Blanca and the other side Riesling. So, and then one we ferment it until the end, but the other one we leave a lot of sugar and then we mix them. So then the final wine, it has the 10 alcohol degrees and the 39 grams per liter of sugar. So in this case,
Riesling is a very interesting blended varietal actually into your Grenache Blanc.
Well, we like to put Riesling because in our region and everywhere, but here it's a very high acidity grape. So
and you need that for the sweetness.
Exactly, we need that to balance the sweetness, and that's why this is not a dense wine. I mean, one of the mistakes of these wines is that you taste one glass and then you are bored because it's too sweet, or it's just you don't want another one. However, if the acidity is high, is when the wine is not flat, is when it's crispy, is when when it's funny, and that's, I think we have managed to achieve on this wine, and actually it's
Okay, I think
working very well.
we've got 10 minutes left, I think, Jorge. So just go through the taste of the wine itself for the viewers, please.
Sure. So, well, on the nose, you're going to get the Garnacha Blanca and the Riesling, and here, I mean, actually, it's funny because we call it like El Mielero, and people realize it's honey because you have all the bee, and some people, when they smell it and then drink it, they can feel the honey. So I keep telling them there is no honey. I mean, so I like to say that it has some honey notes, because actually when you drink it, it's not. I don't know if it's because you see the label, but it feels like tropical fruits, but you have the honey, you have the citric as well. It's very smooth. It's a fresh sweetness, I would say. This is, I mean, it's a wine that
you really gave it a twirl there.
No, it's a wine that is not easy to sell everywhere because the different countries have different markets. But in Spain, this is something that is trendy. So in Spain, you go to a restaurant, and when you go wine by the glass, you're gonna have 2 or 3 white wines. You're gonna have a Chardonnay, a Verdejo, Albarino, and then you're gonna have a Godello maybe, and then on the red side you're gonna have Tempranillo, Rioja, Garnacha. And then you're always going to have one semi-sweet. So Rioja producers start producing this. We have a friend there that showed us his wine. We like it. We start selling it, and then we did some kind of collaboration, and then we learn from them. And actually, it's a wine that is working very well in Spain. Actually, yeah, it's in every like.
What's the alcohol ABV there on the bottom?
10. Yeah, exactly. And people ask me, hey, when should I drink this? Here in Spain, it's a perfect wine for, like, yeah, what I said before about after work, wine by the glass. You are with friends, some celebrations, some matches. People that don't really like wine, they are gonna love this wine because it has this sweetness. And also, like, I have experienced that not only the entry-level consumer, like the new consumer in wine, but also like very old people, they also like to have this wine, these semi-sweet wines from time to time. I don't know.
Would it go with Basque? Would it go with Basque cheesecake?
With what?
The famous cheesecake from the Basque region.
I have no idea, Mike. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, why not? I mean,
it's sweet. Yeah. So
yeah,
the acidity in the wine should cut through the creaminess of the cheesecake. It's not too sweet. Cheesecake is not too sweet, so it could be a nice. Maybe you should ask 1 or 2, when you're out and about next time, and see whether it resonates.
Why not? I mean, it's definitely a wine for, I would say, like also spicy food, some Asian type of food.
Absolutely,
I think it goes very well. Aperitif type of wine, dessert as well, even if it's not super sweet. So.
That's very interesting. Low alcohol wines go and a little bit of off dryness are perfect. It's a marriage made in heaven with spicy Oriental food, as it were.
Yeah, so. Definitely. And I'm looking forward for you to have this new vintage, because you will see that every year, like, I think the quality, the wines, it becomes better. It has better quality. But yeah.
Any questions from anybody before we wrap up the session for tonight? Okay.
All right.
So well, Jorge, listen, I think a big thank you very much from my side. It's the first one that we've done. As I mentioned, we were planning to do this before the regional conflict came along. So it's something that we are looking to plan in, in future months. I can see on the screen that we've got the next date there for March the 26th with our Italian supplier. So thank you for being the first one to to come online and showcase your wines. And I hope the people that are signed up and time in explaining the wines. And a big thank you from my side, and of course the bottle store. And those wines are available on the bottle store. Should you wish more wines, correct? Okay.
Well, from my side, thank you very much for tasting the wines with me. I hope you enjoyed, discovered a bit of my winery, Somontano, my family, and my wines. And yeah, hopefully you like them. Hopefully you have a great time. And yeah, if you enjoy the wine, just drink the wines, share the wines, talk to your friends, and spread the word. Thank you very much.